Hello, everybody. I'm back. I want to talk about what happened to me last week on Friday, October 25th. I call it the Day of Blessings. It was just an absolute outpouring of blessings on my life from God, one thing after another, after another, after another, and it was just too good not to share. So, just to give you kind of some background on some things, so what happened to start all of this is that I decided to go ahead and refinance one of our vehicles. I was using a company out of Colorado, so there's a lot of back and forth phone calls with them in order to get the loan approved, as you can imagine. The most recent call that morning, they needed information from me to secure funding for the loan. So after that call, I decided, okay, I've got a little bit of time. I'm going to go vote early for the presidential election. I went to the Brook Hollow Library here on Heimer Road, which is between Coker Elementary and Bradley Middle School, which is where both of my boys attended school. And then I also coached at Bradley when I first moved to San Antonio and started my career here. So this area has always been very near and dear to my heart. After I got done voting, I drove back home and I saw that my neighbors were having a garage sale. We had previously cleaned up some of our garage earlier this fall, but there were some things that we wanted to get rid of or sell, but we really didn't have enough things to warrant having a garage sale at our house. So I asked my neighbor if I could bring some stuff over to try and sell, and he said sure. And he actually took some of those items with him in a wagon that I had been trying to sell on Facebook Marketplace, but nobody wanted it. His daughter is expecting her first child, and so I told him, I said, this is an excellent wagon that she might want to use to take her baby to the zoo or something like that, because that's what we used it for. And so I said, if you just want the wagon, you can have the wagon. But then as I was looking at the garage, I noticed that there's two bikes sitting there that nobody ever rides. But we don't really do anything with them anymore. They're just there. They're both used, but they're in decent shape. But both of them had flat tires. The first bike is Cynthia's that we got her during COVID so that she could ride outside. Then, when the gyms reopened, because she works at a gym, the bike just really never got used anymore because she was able to go exercise at the gym as well as work at the gym, so she didn't really use the bike very much. So I decided to go ahead and walk that bike over next door to put out for sale. And as I'm walking, there's an older man that pulled up and parked and asked me how much I wanted for the bike. Now, mind you, I've not even gotten past my property line at this point. I'm literally halfway between my garage and my neighbor's driveway. And I said, well, what would you like to give me for this bike? And he looked it over and he said he'd give me $40 for it if I'd help him load it into his vehicle. And I told him that I was pretty sure that the tires just needed to be aired up. And he kind of looked it over again. He said, that's not a problem. I just want to go ahead and put new tubes in those tires because I want to give this to my sister. I think she'll really like it. And so I took his $40 after I loaded it up for him and returned to my house to get the other bike. So came back to my garage and I decided I'd go ahead and just air up those tires because I wanted to make sure that they were still good before I put it out for sale. So I wheeled that over to the driveway and I gave it to my neighbor, and he asked, how much do you want for this? And I said, well, I just got $40 for the other one. What do you think? And he said, well, let's try for 30. And I said, okay. So I went back to my garage, and literally not even 5 minutes later, he's bringing me $30. Like, I can't even believe this is happening. These are two things that are just sitting in my garage that we couldn't get rid of. While we're talking, my phone rings, and it's the finance company that's calling to ask me a series of questions to verify my identity. I tell my neighbor I've got to take this call, I'm sorry, and so he left. And so the lady on the other line starts asking me questions, and the questions and the answer choices make no sense to me at all. So I fail this test. She puts in my information again, gets another set of questions, another set of answer choices, and these questions do not pertain to me at all. And I tell her that she's got to have the wrong David Crow. Maybe this is for my dad, but it's not for me. And she tells me there's no way that could be possible as she used my social security number and my birth date. So I fail again, and now she tells me that I'm going to have to complete a power of attorney form in order for the company to act on my behalf with the loan carrier. And so I go back inside, I check the email, download the forms, print the forms, but now I've got to get these forms notarized before I send them to Colorado. I had a real hard time getting the forms to load and print, but finally I got it to work. While I'm struggling with these forms, I hear a voice in my head telling me I need to take some of this stuff that's in the garage to play it against sports. I kind of ignored it and started working on some other things, but I kept feeling that I needed to go right away. So I went into the garage, I grabbed 2 bats that the boys don't use anymore, took 3 old batting helmets that I'd already given to my neighbor, and decided I'll take the bats and the batting helmets and take those to play against sports and see what they'll give me for them. Well, when I arrive, I take the bats and the helmets into the store, and I let them know that I just want to sell them. They tell me there's some people in front of me, and it might take a while, so I could leave the items with them, and they would just call and give me a quote. So I gave my name and my phone number to them. Then I saw a glove sitting on the counter, and it was very familiar to me. It had a tag on top as though it had just been priced and was ready to be put out on the shelf. I picked it up and I looked in disbelief. This was the exact glove that my grandparents gave me for my birthday when I was playing Little League Baseball in Borger, Texas. I opened it up, and the signature of Dale Murphy inside the leather is pristine. If you can see that, it is unbelievably clear that that is Dale Murphy. And there was a name that had been written on this part of the glove that had worn off. But I knew when I saw this glove, my heart leapt. I had to have this glove. And so I asked the lady at the counter if they could hold that glove for me until the items were appraised, so then I could use the store credit from the bats and the helmets that I brought in order to get this treasure. Now, mind you, I would have paid $500 for this glove at this point. Like, whatever it cost, I was taking this glove. There's no way this glove was not coming home with me. Because you understand, like, I've been working on myself, as I said, through God's guidance, and there's been a ton of memories that come flooding in. My parents were extremely faithful, and I'd remembered lots of great things about how they supported me over the years and taught me a lot of things with their actions and their walk with Jesus. And on Wednesday, a couple of days before this, when I was at work, I was on a break out on our patio, and I saw this little cardinal under the shrubs, and I just watched it and kept thinking of my grandmother. And I was hoping that she was really proud of how I was getting my life right with God and walking with faith. All right, so let's get back to the story. So as I'm leaving Play It Against Sports, I see a man and a son coming into the store with some shoulder pads. Well, the son is one of my oldest son's best friends from Lee, and they played football together until this year. So I greet them both and I asked them what they're doing, and the son tells me that he has no need for those shoulder pads anymore, and he just graduated from one of our alternatively structured schools called ACE, and it has a faster pace for kids to finish out credits so that they can get to work or go to college quicker without going through the route. So he told me that he's working and that he eventually wants to become an electrician. And I told him that's amazing. I was so proud of him for not giving up and finishing out and getting his diploma. So I asked him if he was going to walk at the December ceremony that they always have for ACE, and he said that he was. I said, well, make sure you let me know when this happens, and that I would absolutely attend for him because I am so proud of this kid. JD and this kid went to school together in elementary, and then reunited again at Lee, and they've known each other for a long, long time. So it was just really good to run into this kid and see that he was doing well. So I left the parking lot, and I had reached out to my former secretary from Lee because I needed to get these documents notarized, and I thought I remembered that she was a notary, and then she responded by text and saying that yes, she was a notary, and so was her daughter. So I asked her if I could swing by and get them signed. I was going to come by to Lee High School, but she wasn't at Lee that day. She had just closed on a house and was moving into that house when I texted her. Her daughter was actually the person responding to my text because my former secretary was driving, and then she said that I could come by their new house to get them signed. So I asked for the address, and I kind of just waited because it was kind of just radio silence. And I felt that voice of God again telling me, hey, just drive over there to Bradley and wait. Because, again, I'm in this area, right? Bradley's very close to Play It Against Sports. So there's a little park on the back side of the Bradley area that we used to pick our kids up after school at. I spent a lot of time in that park, even playing baseball with them when they were little, teaching them how to field grounders and all that good stuff. So I pulled into that parking lot, and now it's a little nicer. There's actually a restroom facility at the park, so I used the restroom while I was there, and then I walked back out, and I'm kind of just there hanging out, and then I started getting hungry, so I decided I'll just go back to the Whataburger that's near the Play It Again sports store because I'm so close, again in this area. Well, while I'm at Whataburger, I get a text back from my secretary, and she sends me her address. And the new house that she bought is literally less than 5 minutes from where I am at. So I finish my lunch and I head to her house. She shows me around her house, and honestly, I think it's the perfect place for her. It's a really nice place, and it's in a good, safe little area. And so I was kind of talking about different things with her, and wanted to share what had been happening with me, which if you saw my previous video, that's what's been going on. And so I'm calling this version 5.5 of David Crow. And she asked me why the 5.5, because she knew that 55 was always such a big deal to me. That was my football number, a lot of my stuff, email addresses, accounts. I mean, you'll find 55 in a lot of things. And I probably shouldn't be sharing that, but, I may need to change some things, but on technology now that I said that, but I'm just kind of chuckling now as I think about this. But I use 55 a lot. But I wanted during this journey, what my ultimate goal is to really try to decrease myself 10 times and try to bring others up 10 times higher, which led me to this 5.5 concept. If I reduce myself by 10, then 55 turns into 5.5 by just moving the decimal and putting somebody else first. Her and her daughter both found kind of my story to be incredible, which several of you have mentioned as well that saw the first video. So while we're talking, my phone rings, and it's the refi company calling me back. This time it's a guy on the line, and he's telling me that he needs to verify my identity by asking me a few questions. So I started to cut him off, but then I let him proceed. Well, the first question he asked me, he goes, I already know the answer to this question, but I have to ask it anyways. What is the color of the vehicle? It's blue, right? And I said, yes, it's the most beautiful blue color there is because it's my wife's favorite color. The next question was a none of these answer. And I started thinking, oh, here we go again. I'm going to fail this test again. The last question that was asked was about addresses that were associated with me. And it wasn't until the last of those 5 options that Cypress Mist came up. And that was the first house that Cynthia and I bought as a married couple when we moved to San Antonio in the year 2000. I simply pointed a finger up to heaven as I passed this test. I finished, I hung up, I looked at my secretary, and I just started tearing up that power of attorney paperwork. I told her that the refi company had just called me, and I just passed, and this time they had the right David Crow. Right then I realized that God led me to her house, not to get papers signed, but to bless her new house. So I asked her if I could pray over her house, and I did so with great conviction. The phone rings again, and it's Play It Again Sports. They have my quote ready for me. I finished my conversation with them, and I was feeling like I needed to buy her a housewarming gift, and I felt like I was supposed to buy her a cross. I heard her start to say, and I think what she was going to tell me is that she already had plenty of crosses, but she didn't. She just let me say it. And I gave her a big hug, and we joked that there was no HR rule against me giving her a big hug these days. And then her daughter actually commented that her mom had been needing that hug for quite a while. So if you remember back from my first video about the power hug that I had with the guy at church when I was releasing a lot of my pain, it sounds like my secretary just needed to feel a good hug for whatever was going on at that moment for her. So then I take off again to go to Play It Again Sports, and I get the quote, which is well above what I needed to buy my glove. So I take the glove, and then I also took back a helmet and a bat that they didn't want because they were too used for them to take. And then right adjacent to the Play It Again Sports is an HEB that we go to a lot of times, a very small HEB. But I thought maybe there might be a small cross there that I could buy for my secretary and take it to her house since I was so close. Cynthia's bought some crosses at HEB before, so I thought maybe they'd have them. So I saw a sign that says religious candles on one of the aisles, so I figured I would start there. So I see religious candles on one side of the aisle, and then I see HEB candles on the other side of the aisle. And one of the candles is sugar cookies. And it smells just like my house did the day that I prayed for those demons to leave and for God to fill this house. And so I bought that candle and I took it over to her house. And I told her, I thought I was supposed to buy you a cross, but I was led to buy you this so that you can remember this story anytime you smell this candle. And it's the smell of heaven. When I got home, all I could do was praise God. What a day. I reflected on my grandmother, who always called me David Allen to differentiate between my father and I. And I wrote on a sticky note that I am not my father. And there is more to share about that in the future, but I am my own man. I also decided that I needed to create a new email address so that I could start a new Google Drive to save docs and videos as I go on this journey. So I tried a lot of combinations of my name with the 5.5 at gmail.com, and nothing worked. David Crow 5.5 did not work. David C 5.5 did not work. Crow David 5.5 did not work. So then I tried David Allen Crow 5.5 at gmail.com, and that one took. And that's where my new story is going to be housed until God tells me more about how this proceeds in the future. It's also a place that you can email me if you like, because the only thing that email is ever going to be used for is something that's going along with this. And so because of the victory that I felt that day and everything that was going on, I literally put a post out or put something on Instagram saying, don't tell me my God isn't real. Do not tell me that my God isn't real. He has showed up and showed out in ways that I can't even explain, and continues to do so. So I have no choice but to remain faithful on this journey. And today is Halloween as I'm recording this. I'm dressed wearing my Rebel shirt, and we are taking a big stance against Halloween today. We are creating an environment of safety and refuge for kids that might get frightened by the evil that's at the end of the block. We're going to be playing Christian music. We're going to be handing out candy with Bible verses on them. We're going to be handing out Skittles because the rainbow is a covenant from God to Noah about never destroying the earth again. And hopefully we were able to share with somebody today about Christ. That would just be the ultimate tonight during this day. So again, I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate any feedback that you'd like to give me on this series. I'm going to continue to record as God leads me, and I may be creating a YouTube channel at some point in the future. I've still got to figure that out a little bit, but in the meantime, I'm going to keep this circle close and send these videos out to those of you that have been receiving them for feedback. God bless you, and God loves you.